Thank you, Madam Chairman. The vaccine, developing the vaccine as fast as we did, what's your biggest takeaway, Dr. Collins? How did we do that? And how can we do it again if we have to?
It's really important to look and see that this was built upon decades of research in basic science that many people might have said wouldn't probably end up being as relevant as it turned out to be.
So all of our money in the past paid off here, right?
Absolutely. This committee and the Congress, especially over the course of the last 6 years, where you have increased the NIH support by 40%, has made it possible for us to do a lot of things that otherwise we'd still not have been able to start. So yeah, it's all built upon that foundation.
Do you feel like the budget request being made is enough to continue to build on what we've done?
I'm very supportive of the president's budget request, as you might expect I would be, and I'm particularly excited about this new proposal of ARPA-H, a new component of NIH that would give us kind of a DARPA attitude that we could bring to projects that are waiting for that kind of opportunity.
Well, I just hope we can memorialize what we did to get the vaccine out so quickly. The developing world, Dr. Fauci, one thing I worry about is getting the vaccine out in the developing world, particularly Africa. What can we do better in that regard? And why should we?
Well, first of all, the answer to your second question, which is very relevant, Senator, is why should we? And the reason we should is that a global pandemic requires a global response. And even though, as you well know from the numbers, we are doing extremely well in this country, we now have over 60% of adults having at least one dose, and about almost 50% of the adult population in this country fully vaccinated. However, even if we get this pandemic under control, which I believe we will within a period of a few months, there is always the danger when you have viral dynamics in other parts of the world for the generation of variants that might actually undermine the protectiveness of the vaccines that we have.
So it's in America's interest to get the vaccine out to as many people as possible.
Is absolutely to our interest. I believe not only do I think it's a humanitarian moral responsibility, but it's in what I call enlightened self-interest for us to do that.
So let's talk about our enlightened self-interest for a moment. Has there ever been a pandemic that we know of that started in a laboratory somewhere?
To our knowledge, no.
Okay. If this were in fact a breach of protocols in China, if it did come out of a lab, that would be a first for the world. Is that right?
I believe so. There was a situation with an influenza where there was a suspicion that it might have escaped from a laboratory in Russia. But that has never been validated or confirmed.
So have we found any animals that carry COVID-19 that could have been the source of the transmission to humans thus far?
Thus far, not. I mean, if what you're referring to, Senator, is an intermediate host,
right?
We know clearly, for example, with SARS-CoV-1, that a bat virus went into a civet cat, which then transmitted it into the human population. With MERS, it was a bat to a camel to human. The intermediate host, if there is one, has not yet been found.
And we've been looking for that intermediate host. Is that fair to say?
That is fair to say, sir.
At what point in time would it become more likely it came from the lab if we don't find an intermediate animal host? How much longer?
I don't think we can give a time element on that, Senator, for the simple reason we still have not yet confirmed what the host is from Ebola. We know that Ebola jumps from an animal reservoir to human, and it's been many years now since the original Ebola outbreaks, and we haven't yet nailed that.
But we believe that Ebola did not come from a lab.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So I guess my point is, who should look? What should we be doing to make sure we find out how it started?
Right.
And finally, what should be the consequences to any country, China included, that allowed this to happen? What should the world expect of a country if they, in fact, allowed this virus to come from one of their labs through negligence?
Well, first of all, when you said who should, you know, the WHO did what they're referring to now as phase 1 of an investigation, which they felt was not completely adequate. As you know, you've heard me and Dr. Collins and others in the administration calling for a continuation of the investigation. I don't think I can comment on your second question. It would have to be the circumstances under which something like that happened, if indeed it happened.
Well, just very briefly, I know my time's out. I think we should send a clear signal to China, seems to be a source of a lot of pandemics, that if this did occur in the lab, expect something to happen. Because if we don't, we're just going to reinforce this in the future. And what that something is, I'm open-minded to. But I'm closed-minded to the idea of doing nothing.